Yeah, for the pregame show here, one second, I've got continued reading Robert Penn Warren this week, and still just really digging his work so much. Every time I rediscover it is a pleasure. And it's also interesting looking at his stuff and reflecting back on my own sort of poetry, which he was the first poet who I sort of like consciously started to copy in terms of tone and length. What length of poem is a really interesting question in terms of what a particular poet considers to be like a finished length. Everybody has their own sort of like stopping point. And Warren's used to be mine as well. You can kind of see what the let's see if I can get that there. Yeah, you can kind of see one entire page, a little bit of the next, and here is another one. Code book lost. You know, it's about that length, and that's what has felt right to me for a very long time. And then as time went on, that sort of started to diminish and shrink, and now I'm in a different place entirely. And that's the wonder of going back and visiting your artistic forebears and seeing how far you have grown from the start that they gave you. So yeah, going back and reading that stuff years later is a pleasure. Also resumed stream regular in chat Final Technique, and I started an art project a while back based on the Middle English Physiologus, which is a 11th century bestiary that follows the bestiary patterns of the Middle Ages, which is rather than the naturalistic descriptions that you find in bestiaries prior to that in the classical world. Bestiaries under Christendom began to sort of pair not always accurate naturalistic observations with moral points, and that's kind of where this lands us. Let me see here. Yeah, there we go. So this is a photograph of my notes. This right here, and as you can see, you know, it's not a language you're going to have to speak to anybody, so you don't always commit all of it to memory. And also with Middle English, this is more true with Middle English than it is with Old English, and that is only because, well, let me say what I'm saying. The fact that orthography varies so drastically between different works in Middle English is because there are so many more continuing to exist, extant Middle English works than Old English. And so even if you have a notion about what a word looks like in one context, that's not always what it's going to be in the others. So, like, you know, I am not an expert. I am at my best intermediate with this, and so I annotate heavily. But yeah, it's beautiful stuff, and you can absolutely tell this is where the francophone prosody has entered into English poetry, because we've got end rhyme, there's ba-da 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 rhythm, and it's just beautiful. I'm going to take a shot at this. Nobody who knows Middle English judge me. Kithen iwilla the earnest kinda, also ich it boka reda. Wo he knoweth his youth head, who he cometh out of elde, sithen his limbs arn unwelde, sithen his beck is alto wrong, sithen his fleet is all unstrong, and his eyen dimme. Hereth wo he knoweth him, at wella he saketh that springeth I, botha by nicht and by die, for hour he flayeth and up he tith, till that he the heaven sith. So yeah, so it's the idea here is this is describing an eagle, and the way an eagle renews its youth, according to this, is he gets limbs arn unwelde, his arms are all gangly, his beak is all too wrong, his beak is all crooked. His fleet is all unstrong. His flight is weak, and it's great. Like, the word they use for weak is unstrong, and that's like, yeah, it's like, do it. There's no one stopping you. No one's codified anything yet. So he's looking for like a special spring or a special well, and he flies really high up, and then as he gets near the sun, all of his flight and his strength goes away, and he just flies straight down, burning on fire from the heat of the sun into the well. And then he pops up and renews himself. And this is very clearly like kind of like a blending of a phoenix and an eagle, right? And but the idea here is this is the reason this is a very much a Middle English, Middle Ages bestiary entry and not a classical bestiary entry is this is combining these naturalistic observations, which I don't think are correct, with the notion of a person redeeming themselves or renewing their moral fortitude by getting to know God. You know, it's like they get close to the sun. The sun is clearly a metaphor for, the Trinity, and then they get singed by that. Their wrong ways are all burned out, and they go down into the water. It's a baptism image, and they come back up, and they're strong, and that's how you should be as a human being. Be like the eagle. And so this is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting back into this more. And on a very different end of the medium spectrum, yes, definitely pre-Darwin. Thank you, Mirth, and good to see you, Iceman Dan. I actually love wrong naturalism more than I like. Obviously science is wonderful, observation is great, and I love birds. I love knowing them, I love seeing them, I love knowing how they work and their bones and all that other stuff. But I also love the snippets and visions of animals that were attained before consistent observation could be secured, and how we fill in the gap, or how our ancestors filled in the gaps. So it's lovely stuff. And thank you, Mirth. I'm thinking, man, if I find more Warren to share, that'd be a good time. But on the very different end of the media spectrum, let's see. Here we go. So I watched Blackmail Is My Life, the very unambiguously named. You know exactly what that's about. Evening Peas. Best Smith. Master Smith is closest to my heart. Dan Smith is my more regular, often than not, boots on the field. And the other Smiths all have their place. That's kind of where they land with me. And Garcian is, Garcian and Mask. Those are like the toss-up for the Smith that lives closest to my heart, because they're both the softest characters. You know, they're likable in some way, and so that works. But yeah, so this is one of Fukusaku's crime movies, and it's so strange. It's very interesting, and I really dig it. Because it starts out as this movie about like this ragtag game of, they're blackmailers, but they're kind of folk hero blackmailers, right? They're a cool club of people, kind of outcasts, and they pick targets that nobody's really going to disagree with them going after, and it's that sort of like amoral rogue who you can get behind because they're not really hurting anybody who you would root for anyway. So, and it's kind of cool. Like, here they are in their little clubhouse, and they've got their own little like fight club thing. It's like, what are the 3 rules to blackmail? And just in the style of just like really appreciating how space is broken up here, just really dig how this visually works. So it's like, it's got Shun, he's the leader there, and so he's the one who's sort of like giving like the clarion call to their little code here, and she says, don't make any new friends. That's one. So you got the one finger up there. Cut to Joe, or Zero, I'm sorry, his name is Zero. Don't push too hard. And you can see that, like, he puts his fingers up like that, and her finger in the frame is like fitting right through there. So you've got the 3, and then it cuts to him, and his hand fills up the space there. Never hit up the same mark twice. And then it cuts back to Shun, and so you've got all of their hands there, and there's this sort of like blossoming, like it fits the space so perfectly, and it's so good. But yeah. So they're kind of this ragtag gang, and you kind of go through many of their escapades in sort of like the targets they hit. They're going after, they're like kind of like what's the guy's name? The pirate, the privateer who the pirate who hunted other pirates. I think it was Ryuji's persona in Persona 5. Captain Kidd, yeah. So they're kind of like a Captain Kidd. They're the blackmailers who go after other blackmailers and small gangs and stuff like that. They go through, they have their successes, so there they are. If they're a hard-won 10 grand, so they're very excited over low stakes. And, they immediately go out and like buy cars and stuff like that. And then as it goes on and it kind of like escalates, they really start to take advantage of just these beautifully very beautifully oriented, what's the word I'm looking for? composed shots, where here there's this like I don't know what kind of yard this is, clearly a junkyard, but you see these crates that are lined up that are arcing up on the side, and that's beautiful the way that space is broken up. And here they do like just a really nice use of silhouetting the entire yard against you know, the fading light. And there, that's Zero as he is making his way to the rendezvous, and it's just gorgeous what they do with the lighting on those slats, just sort of all pointing to his face. I mean, it's like most of them are pointing to his face. But a lot of them are just sort of creating like this sort of like horizontal composition, right? This horizontal composition there on the lower left, and it's just beautiful how it frames that. And what's really cool about that shot right there is that's actually in the background of another shot. And so it's you don't see him there, and then it zooms in on him, and so then you know that he is there, and so yeah, so that it just kind of pulls that out of its back pocket. And this right here is where he's continuing to make his way to the rendezvous. Yeah, Fukusaku does some amazing things with shot composition, and this is another one that I like, which is you have you have the depth here with those pipes that are sort of pointing to the background. They're clearly 3D depth because you have objects in the distance, but then it uses these foregrounded silhouettes in the upper right and the lower right to create a two-dimensionality to it. So it's this is something that stylistically shows up in Killer 7 that I like quite a lot. I mean, you can almost see this sort of style if you pay attention when the Smiths get to different junctions and you have to choose. It's like you have the 3D space, but then it flattens the screen into little shards and glass, almost like glass-like shards, sort of spanning out from where your character is. And that's what this does here too. There's a flatness to it and a three-dimensionality, and that's how it works. Yeah, and so it also does something really interesting with flashbacks. It's like it uses flashbacks heavily, and here Shun got beaten up because he got into business he shouldn't have. It's a crime movie. And but what they always do is they always segue from the black and white, and then they immediately move to color shots as the flashback continues. So it's not so even when they're going to linger on a flashback, they introduce you as the audience to the moment of the flashback, and then they continue to play it as though it's in the current moment. So there's kind of like a sense that memory is this active moment. It's like the past made present, and I think that's very cool. I don't think I've seen Fukusaku do that in any of his other movies, and that's one of the things that is neat about him is his inconsistency in terms of applying the same techniques across different films. And what makes this really interesting as a crime movie is kind of the high-level story. So again, like as I mentioned, there's sort of this ragtag gang of criminals, and you kind of grow to love them. They're sort of Robin Hoods. They're the thieves who go after thieves. But in terms of crime movies, there are just a very small number of high-level stories. There's and you can kind of break them down into two categories: crime doesn't pay and crime pays. The crime doesn't pay story is the detective succeeds or the criminal fails, depending on who your main character is. Crime pays is the detective fails or the criminal succeeds. You kind of maybe like your Ocean's 11 kind of thing. So those are kind of your high-level crime stories. And this is weird because it's like if there's a moral here, the story is that crime pays as long as you don't punch above your weight. Like there's actually a class and a skill division between criminals, and we get to see our lovable rogues succeed, and so you can sort of root for them until they try to blackmail like government and like high organized crime marks, at which point they just fail spectacularly, just absolutely fall on their face. And the movie, I mean, it kind of leads you to think that they're going to succeed, like it's going to be a happy ending kind of thing. And so it gives you these sort of overtures to sort of like underdog success, where it's like Shun's like the bigger they are, the more reason to take them down, and the high level marks are taunting them, and they kind of get scrappy. It's like we're just a couple of punks. That's why we're using punk tactics. Like this sort of scrappy underdog's going to win using scrappy underdog tactics, and it absolutely does not work because the people who they're trying to blackmail are far more sophisticated in connections, technique, and what that game is, and they just shut them down immediately. They spend the entire last third of the film trying to get their hands on this one piece of damning political documentation, only to find that they are like the people who they're trying to blackmail are completely able to take the wind out of that, yeah, it's like the memorandum that they're trying to get a hold of is suddenly meaningless, and in the last like 10 minutes, the main character gets knifed in public, and that's it. His last line is, "Wow, what a stupid way to die," and that's it. That's it. That's the movie. And so yeah, so it's very cool in how it. And this is also another thing that, you know, comparing different media that I'm paying attention to. Evening Swedish X. And, nah, I mean, if you can rent it, do it. That's what I do. And Scarecrow Video in Seattle is a fantastic resource. And I think they're actually bidding to do mail order soon. So they might actually be able to expand their reach. So, Scarecrow Video, Seattle. Take a look at it. But yeah, so Killer 7 kind of does the same thing, where it builds up this really good feeling. Actually, Suda games in general do this, now that I think about it. The Silver Case does this also, where you build up this really good feeling among comrades, and then as you get toward the end, the group dissolves, things go to hell, things stop working out, and at the end, you're left with this sort of weirdly despairing, almost nihilistic sense, where there used to be a sense of warmth. And so yeah, so Fukusaku's Blackmail's My Life does the same thing. So, and with that in mind, we can jump into Killer 7. Also, Swedish X, good to see you.